between both Republicans and Democrats. Kristi Noem is a freshman congresswoman from South Dakota and a big voice for the Tea Party. Welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I talked to Democratic Congressman Van Hollen this morning here in the Washington Bureau. He said that he believed that there was a 50-50 chance that some deal could be struck between Democrats and Republicans, but he says that's not so now. From your perspective, how likely is it that the government will shut down on Friday?
Well, we're still hoping that the Senate and the President make the right decision and come to the table and agree to make some spending cuts that would put this country on a much more stable fiscal path. You know, that's been our goal all along. It's never been to shut down the government, and unfortunately, that decision lays in their hands.
Well, we heard at a big Tea Party rally just last week, some actually saying if the government shuts down, so be it. If it needs to, so be it. In your mind, I mean, do you care if the government shuts down or not? I guess I should ask it to you that way.
Yeah, I absolutely do care. I don't think that's something that we want to see, and I think the responsible thing is to make sure that we all come down and sit at a table and make the discussion and decisions that are necessary. We've had plenty of time to work on this. The House passed a bill 44 days ago that was our solution on how we wanted to end up with fiscal year 2011. We listened to the American people, and now it's time for the Senate to act.
Democrats would say that many of the cuts that you support go along partisan lines, like cuts to Planned Parenthood and NPR. There's no talk at all of cuts, you know, to oil subsidies or farm subsidies. Is that true?
Well, I think when you look at a lot of the cuts that have been made on the House side, they've been on both sides of the issue. In fact, even one of the programs that was so important to our Speaker was cut as well. So I think that when you look at it, the Republicans have been very willing to put everything on the table, have that discussion, and be able to make cuts where it's necessary.
But really, the Republicans have been willing to put everything on the table, because there are a lot of people out say that there is no compromise here, that and you can't dismiss the fact that the Democrats still control the Senate. So isn't some form of compromise necessary to get a deal done?
Well, we absolutely need to have everybody at the table. The House can't pass anything on their own, and I think that's why we've seen a stalemate. The House has certainly taken action days ago, weeks ago, and that's why we need the Senate and the President to sit down.
Congresswoman, when you're talking about cuts to something like Planned Parenthood or NPR, something you know that the President will probably veto in the end anyway, that Senate Democrats will not go for, why not get those issues off the table?
Well, we'd love to be at the table first, and that's the discussion that needs to happen. We haven't had discussions going on. Now, today our leadership is meeting with the President, so hopefully from there we'll start to have those discussions. We should have had them weeks ago.
So do you think something will come out of that? Because we know how past conferences in the Oval Office have gone between Democrats and Republicans. Nothing much has come of it.
Well, you know, I remain hopeful on that, because I think the American people need us to be hopeful and need us to continue to work at that. So regardless of past experience, the right thing to do is to sit down and have that conversation. Listen, we came here with a mandate from the American people after the last election that we can't continue down this path. We can't continue to accumulate this debt. So we need to make sure that we're pursuing that every single day, trying to maximize the amount of cuts that are necessary to make sure we give our children that future that we all had when we were younger.
Well, there are people in this country who think the Tea Party in particular, and especially freshman members as you are sort of blocking this progress and refusing to compromise in any way, shape, or form, and that's really what's holding things up.
Well, I think when you look at the situation, a lot of people have tried to label people with different responsibilities. But, you know, I speak for my freshman class. I speak for my conference when I say that they're very willing to tackle the tough issues in front of us, very willing to have those conversations. They've been ongoing on our side in the House for weeks. We certainly need to come to a conclusion, because by the end of this week, we certainly have a time frame that there's going to be some real consequences if that doesn't happen.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Carol.
Sure. Kristi Noem is one of the members of Congress who's voted to cut funding